ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Over to you.
Yes. Pranam to all of you. We welcome once again on the third day of our IKS-TKDL workshop on traditional knowledge, intellectual property, and people's rights. Today, we are very honored to have with us Madam Vijaya Lakshmi, Dr. Vijaya Lakshmi Asthana, Madam. So, today Madam will talk about how we can protect our intellectual property. So before that, I would just want to give a brief introduction of Madam. Madam has a doctorate in chemistry from Bhabha Atomic Research Center, Mumbai. And after a short stint in teaching, embarked on a career in the field of intellectual property rights. She has worked as an examiner of patents in the Indian Patent Office and later joined CSIR as scientist. She has been editor of Journal of Intellectual Property Rights, a peer-reviewed journal devoted to publishing quality articles on all aspects of intellectual property rights, IPR. She has an experience of over 20 years in the field of IPR and traditional knowledge. Currently, Madam is principal scientist in the CSIR Traditional Knowledge Digital Library TKDL unit, where she leads projects of in national importance relating to digitization of Indian systems of medicine, including Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Swarikpa, as well as yoga practices, and also relating to filling of third-party observations and pre-grant submissions against patent applications based on Indian traditional medicines at different patent offices worldwide. She continues to be involved in creating awareness about traditional knowledge and its protection while establishing linkages among various stakeholders. She is also an active member of the Indian delegation participating in the ongoing negotiations for an international instrument on protection of Indian knowledge and traditional cultural impressions under the World Intellectual Property Organization. Ma'am, we are very happy. We are very honored. Please, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Piyushji. Thank you for the very kind introduction. So, if I may, shall I start with today's proceedings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I'll just share my presentation.
Yes.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I know that you have had two very good days of deliberations. So, I will be starting off from perhaps some bit of it. I will initially remind you of what you may have already heard the last couple of days, and then move over to the topic that we have here for today. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, madam.
Are you able to hear me clearly? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Could you please
So,
check if slides are moving or not?
Yeah, sure. So, is it moving?
Yes. Yes, madam.
All right. Thank you so much, Piyushji.
Yes, I think
so.
There is a mark on the. So could you please check? It's visible. There is a mark on your PPT.
Sorry.
Now, could you please just once again move your slides again?
Sure. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yes.
Is it moving?
It's moving, but one box comes up.
Just one second. Vijayalakshmi, there's just some kind of gray smaller squares. I don't know if you can see it on your screen.
Sorry? there is some kind of mark.
There are like small gray squares that are appearing, like right now it's on the picture and on the IKS division logo. Is it something that the participants are also seeing? Can somebody just let us know in the participants group?
Okay.
Are you also seeing this? Yes.
Just
Would you like
is
to
it
just
gone?
no, it's not.
Okay,
Yes,
I
ma'am,
don't
I
see
request
anything
you
on my
please,
screen, so not sure.
put up your
Should I
slides
stop sharing and share
once.
again?
Yes.
I'll do that. So,
Namaste, Vishwajanani ji. It's
does
working
that
now. So
help?
far,
It's
so good.
better, Vijay. The gray
So far, so
boxes
good.
have
Yes.
gone. Yeah.
Sorry?
No, the gray boxes are gone. You can continue.
Yes. They're
Can
gone
I
and
start?
open, and I think the students
Okay.
are. Yeah, we've got feedback that it's fine. The participants are saying it's clear.
I seem to hear your voice a little low. Can you just repeat what you
Yes,
said?
madam. Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's very
Sure.
clear. You can
All
proceed.
right. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I'll just start with today's topic. So what we thought was, while you have had 2 days where you have discussed what basically, other forms or types of traditional knowledge, you all have had a great amount of discussion on the first day on Indian knowledge systems. Then on the second day, you all must have heard of the various types of intellectual property and the kind of protection they offer and what are the legal rights that are given to people under that. So today what we will talk about is protection of traditional knowledge per se. Okay, so there are two forms that we'll be discussing here today. One is defensive and the other is positive. Along with that, I will also give you an overview of the traditional knowledge digital library, which is one of the forms of the defensive protection that we will be talking about. So as we move on during the lecture, I will move on to different topics. Okay, so some amount of maybe it may be a little bit of repetition just to remind you. Since the discussion of today's topic is protection of traditional knowledge, we first need to understand what is the context and what is the kind of information that we are talking about when we are talking about protection. Okay, so traditional knowledge, we all understand, is some form of knowledge, know-how, skills, practices which are developed over generations. They are passed from one generation. They could be intergenerational, and to some extent even there is some kind of dynamicity that is intragenerational, and they often form the cultural or spiritual identity of a particular community, of a family, so on and so forth. Okay, so what do we mean by traditional knowledge, or the sources that we get and from where is this available? So it includes intellectual, intangible, cultural heritage. Okay, there are two things you must have heard of. One is traditional knowledge. The other term you all must have come across often is traditional cultural heritage. So now this traditional knowledge and traditional cultural heritage, although we maybe not be able to demarcate them very specifically, this would include all forms of scientific and technical knowledge which is available in our ancient texts. This includes mathematics and so on, agriculture, ecological. You also heard of a lot of this astronomy, even things like water divining in agriculture. So all these are different ways of how traditional knowledge has been described in our various texts. Besides that, it would also include many other things like songs, dances. I'll give you some explanation or some description of what are the other kinds of traditional knowledge that we will also include in this discussion. So where are these available? They're available from secondary sources. What do we mean by secondary sources? Secondary sources would be anything in which this kind of information is already fixed. Fixed in the sense published in some form of a book, or in the form of, you have seen the Pandulipis, you have seen the palm leaf manuscripts where these things are already there, or in the form of stone carvings, or in some form of where they have been fixed. What are the primary sources? Primary sources are basically the individuals, communities, families. They are all knowledge holders. They are all those people who contribute to the practice and the preservation of traditional knowledge. Okay, keep this in mind as we move towards the rest of the talk. So you must have also heard that there are several thousands and lakhs of manuscripts in India. See, India in the sense is slightly different from other countries because we have a large amount of documented knowledge. When we talk about traditional knowledge, it could be in documented form or it could be in a non-documented form. So it is need not necessarily be published. It can also exist as oral knowledge within families, within communities, and not available to the general public. Even so, India as a country has a large amount of these codified or traditional knowledge which has already been fixed in some form, especially in manuscripts. So these are some data we have got from the National Mission for Manuscripts. They have conserved a lot of these manuscripts. If you go to the National Mission for Manuscripts, you on the website, you will find they have all these details of how many manuscripts they have preserved. The thing but with manuscripts is that the language in which these manuscripts are written are not that language which we understand or speak of as on today. So whenever you have to get this information from manuscripts, what you first have, there is one step, additional step, wherein the information has first to be seen by manuscriptologists, converted into some spoken language that we understand as of today, and then only that information can be understood. Okay. So given that constraint and the lack of resources in actually converting these manuscripts or documenting these manuscripts, thousands of manuscripts still lie scattered in unknown collections. And a lot of this information is just in the form of preserved manuscripts, that's all. If you go to libraries, you would notice a lot of this lie even unpreserved, it's all moth-eaten, termite-eaten. But yeah, a lot of effort is being made to conserve this. Besides that, we have our texts. Okay. Importantly, if you consider the Indian systems of medicine or, the various practiced medicines in India, like for instance, Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, all this information is already available in the form of texts. When we talk about oral traditional knowledge, India as a country again has a large population of the tribal people. Okay. Nearly 10 crore of the over 10 crore of the population, or nearly 10% of India's population consists of the tribal population. And this indigenous population have followed customary traditions, practices over several generations, and they have maintained all these things in their communities. This could be in the form of knowledge related to agriculture, knowledge related to handicrafts, weaving, even dyeing, so many things. And so all this information is still available with them, being passed on from generation to generation. Okay. One thing we must remember is often this knowledge is not disclosed. Okay. It's not in some published format. It is within the communities. They may have some kind of thing, but that is, restricted to the, access is restricted to only the community or the families. Okay. Now, coming to the topic of discussion today, we are talking about protection of traditional knowledge. So why do we need to protect traditional knowledge? Okay. We understand there is a lot of traditional knowledge in India, right from, science and technology to performing arts. The other kind of traditional knowledge, that is in the sense the traditional cultural expressions that I spoke about, that could include performing arts. We know a lot of the practices, especially among tribals. Rajeshri, maybe you can check your audio. I hope the others are able to hear me. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So when we talk about performing arts, this could be in the form of folk dances, folk theater, folk gestures. See, even, many of these tribal population, even when they, have agricultural practices, they may have a certain type of song or certain type of, some kind of, rituals that they perform along with the seed sowing and growing. They believe that doing so helps the growth of the a particular agricultural product. Okay, so these things are also part of their folk arts or the the traditional cultural expressions per se. Besides this, we also have non-performing arts. Non-performing arts will include sculpture, painting, embroidery, weaving, carpet making, so many other things, even jewelry and so many other things which are there, in the various populations that we know. Okay, so when we talk about protection, there are a few aspects that I have put down on the screen. You will be able to see, which we need to consider when we are having this discussion on protection of traditional knowledge. Primarily, traditional knowledge, unlike many other forms of knowledge, this may be, available or accessed or practiced by many people. Okay, so we have to identify ownership of traditional knowledge. So protection of traditional knowledge can be in various ways. One is protecting the holders of the knowledge, seeing to that their knowledge is not, grabbed by other people, or it is not taken away from them. That is one way. The other way is preservation. We all know that over a period of time, all this information that we have in the texts are getting lost to us. Why? We do not understand those languages anymore. And the way in the format that it is fixed, for example, I also told you the palm leaf manuscripts are getting destroyed by the, elements, natural elements, and we have not maintained them properly. So in this way, we are losing a lot of this information. Besides, when you talk about oral traditional knowledge, a lot of that information is in the is with certain amount of people or certain communities. Once those people go away, that information is also lost. Okay, so we need this protection. And the aspects that we will be talking about today, that is, you need to identify ownership of traditional knowledge. Another thing is prevention of misappropriation. All this traditional knowledge, especially with the current, accessibility of such information, is often subject to misappropriation. So this information, somebody may come to go to the person who has the knowledge, talk to him, be friendly, take that information from them, maybe use it for some other purpose, commercial, and in such a manner that the person who gave the information will never know about this. Okay, so it is important to protect. Another thing is protecting this cultural and spiritual identity. We all know traditional knowledge is not merely what is written, spoken, or available. A large amount of rituals, traditions, customary practices are associated with them. So when it is taken away from the, actual traditional knowledge holder, often it is these aspects of traditional knowledge are removed and, completely made separate, which is also one thing that we must keep in mind. Another thing is, whenever such information is taken from these traditional knowledge holders and used, the aspect of attribution, that is, you acknowledge that it's taken from that person, and benefit sharing, that is, compensate that person for taking that information from them, are also important aspects to remember. Much of this I'll be discussing in tomorrow's lecture, but just to give you an idea that these are the things that we need to remember. And most importantly, traditional knowledge is associated with the livelihood of knowledge holders, and hence it is important to protect. One important aspect here we all need to remember as documenters, as researchers, is that whenever you take some information from anybody, there needs to be prior informed consent. That is, the knowledge holder, when he or she shares the information, should know why she's sharing it, what purpose it will be used for, and all those things. Okay, only in such a case that such a documented knowledge should be even documented or used. Okay, so coming to the protection aspect, the important aspect that we will be talking about is biopiracy and misappropriation. What do we mean by misappropriation? Is using that knowledge without either the permission of the person that you're taking that knowledge from, and not even acknowledging them. Okay, so you seek some sort of commercial benefit or IP protection over the knowledge of another person and not take the permission from that person. Okay, so it's kind of an exploitation without permission. So traditional knowledge digital library was born out of the recognition of misappropriation being existent and very rampant. Okay, so when we started way back in 1990s, we noticed that a lot of the information related to Indian traditional knowledge was getting patented at different patent offices. Okay, so these what happened here was we noticed that simple things like wound healing properties of turmeric was getting patented. The fungicidal properties of neem was getting patented. These were all information that we all knew, we commonly used at home. The difficulty was, although this was oral knowledge or general knowledge, this was also available in certain texts, but it was available in some format or in some manner which was not available to patent offices. Okay, so it could not be accessed, it was not prior art, so those patents got granted. So it was recognized that in order that such information not get patented, there should be some form or some prior art or some database which will help in bridging this gap of this information reaching the patent examiners in a format that is acceptable and available to them. Okay. So then we come to the defensive and positive protection that I spoke about. Okay. I will not speak much about positive protection because the positive protection, okay, someone mentioned Dr. Mashelkar. Yeah, Dr. Mashelkar was an important, he was the catalyst to the whole process of traditional knowledge, okay, digital library that we have today in this form. So the positive protection I'll come to later. We'll first talk about defensive protection. Defensive protection is basically some set of strategies, okay, wherein the illegitimate use or exploitation of the traditional knowledge is prevented. Okay, this could be in various forms, most important being documentation. Positive protection is in some form of legal protection, wherein there is a form of redressal for any misappropriation, and the knowledge holders themselves have the power to protect and promote the traditional knowledge. Okay, so efforts are on both at national level and international levels for these things. We will see all those things as we move on. Okay, when I talk about defensive protection, I said we are primarily speaking of documentation of traditional knowledge. Several attempts of documentation have been made, but much of it is unorganized and also in by different organizations at different points of time in different forms, often repetitive, but there have been, and some of them are very good attempts at documentation. I've put some examples on the slide. For instance, the Ministry of Ayush, there are central councils of Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha. They have done a lot of work on herbal, collection of plants and also knowledge related to those plants from various states and published it as Herbal Wealth. Then database of ethnomedicinal plants of Western Ghats. These are all ICMR initiatives. Even if you go to the tribal affairs ministry, you will find a lot of the information related to these arts and crafts is available for various states. Okay, so these are all ways where the traditional knowledge has been documented. Similarly, we have several databases. I have put all these on my slides. These will be shared with you, so you can personally go and have a look at all these websites. Some of these sites have very good, very structured information on medicinal plants, okay, along with vernacular language names. Okay, some of these websites also describe them as the plants which are used under Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy, Swarikpa, and so on. Okay, one such database, sorry, is from the National Medicinal Plant Board. Okay, we also have another portal, which is the TDU FRLHT initiative. There's the NVIS portal on which also you will find these natural resource names. You will also have there some kind of morphology information, pictures, a lot of information, and in vernacular names will help you understand what plants they are. Okay. Honeybee Network is another such organization. This is a non-governmental organization which is doing a lot of work at the grassroots level for not only documenting such information, but also helping these grassroots innovators to gain intellectual property. Okay. Similarly, you have the ICR website. You will also notice here that they have also done some validation on indigenous technical knowledge in agriculture. So that's a very useful aspect of taking this agriculture, because nowadays what happens, it is not enough to say this is traditional knowledge, it is available in our text. Often people question the validity or whether it is useful on this day. So such validations are also being done, and they have also been documented. Okay. So coming to what provisions we have in our laws, the first thing is the Patents Act, which you must have already heard yesterday, is that any invention which is in effect traditional knowledge is not patentable in India. Okay. So if you have some patent application which is purely speaking about traditional knowledge from the text, it will be treated as prior art and you will not get a patent on it. So now this is one form of defensive protection. So you are not permitted to take patent rights on traditional knowledge per se. Okay. The other thing that I'm going to speak about today is the traditional knowledge digital library. Now, this is actually a database, which is a prior art database, and it is a value-added database, wherein the information that is contained in ancient texts is kind of mapped with the information that is available as on date in modern terminology, so that it is understandable by different practitioners of even modern medicine, or even a normal person like you and me. Okay, that kind of information is included in the TKDL. Currently, we have information on Indian systems of medicine, that is Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Sovarikpa, and also information on yoga. Okay. We have used a certain system to put it in a structural format and also in a searchable format. Okay. So we have used something called traditional knowledge resource classification, which is basically language agnostic, and it is only to put this information through codes into the system, and a report gets generated, and that will be in a structured searchable format. Okay. Currently, this information is available only to 16 patent offices. It is available in 5 different languages, basically international languages. The idea was that it should be understandable by those patent offices where such applications are getting, filed. We also do another work related to filing third-party observations. This I'll explain a little later and give you a very brief introduction to the work that we do. So I told you what we do. Basically, the work is we have an interdisciplinary team. The team consists of actually physicians or practitioners or of Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Yoga, Sovarikpa. They are the ones who actually do this work. Besides that, we have people, since this whole thing is IT based, we have IT experts, we have experts who are having this, knowledge about patents, and also language experts. So what they do is basically read the text, understand the information that is there in it, and input the data using these codes that I mentioned. Then you will get a report in a format that is, I will show you. So we spoke about different texts. So like when you talk about Unani is written in Urdu, Arabic, Persian. The texts of Ayurveda that we use are Malayalam, Sanskrit. It is also, we have in the past done works from Telugu, Marathi. Similarly, when you talk about the Sovarikpa, it is written in one language called Boti, and Saddha is written in Tamil. So all these practitioners who put this information into TKDL are experts in the language too. They need to be able to read and understand the language. Okay. So finally, this is the kind of information that we put as a report. Okay. Here you will see there is a title, how long that knowledge has been known, that is available. Then you have information on how, for instance, most of the things that we have put in Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, they are all formulations. Formulations as in medicines used for certain purposes to treat certain conditions or diseases. So when you include this information, the information will have details of the plants, the ingredients could be minerals, it could be animal products, how the particular formulation is prepared, then how it is given to the patient, and what it is used for, what it is used to treat. And most importantly, the book from which this information has been taken, along with the image of that information in whatever language it is written. Okay. So that is the prior art that is there. The beauty of this TKDL database is that since it is consisting of information from different systems of medicine, it actually speaks across the different systems of medicine. So you will have the code, that is one code. Through that code, you will be able to understand if it is a plant. For instance, here I have listed out plants. You will know the names in Ayurveda, you will know the names in Unani, in Siddha, and you can search across any of the systems of medicine. You also know the common name and the botanical names. So the value add in this is in terms of the mapping with the modern terminology. You're correlating with the modern terminology. In the ancient texts written 500,000 years ago, these plants are mentioned in such a way, it is often cryptic. It would not tell you what exactly the plant is or what exactly the mineral is. It is the practitioners over the period of time and who have practiced understand what is written and they know what plant it is being referred to. So what we have done as a value add is actually mapped it or correlated with the current terminology, and that being the botanical names. Similarly, for the disease names also. So in the disease names also, what we have done is correlated with the modern description for diseases. Okay. Currently, the contents of the TKDL database is, it consists of formulations, about close to 5 lakh formulations. And this is from different texts of Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, Yoga, Sovarikpa. We are also looking at other aspects of the systems of medicine, like diagnostics, like tools, the practices. Sushruta Samhita of Ayurveda primarily is one of the oldest texts referring to surgical methods. Okay, so that's one of the things that you're focusing on now. Then there is also dietary interventions. You must have heard of Pathya Apatya in the case of Ayurveda. Similarly, there are such descriptions in Unani also, and in Siddha also, and Suvarikpa also. So we are also looking at widening the scope of TKDL, putting information of these aspects too. Besides, we are also looking at traditional Indian agricultural practices and tools, very important aspect, especially considering we are basically an agrarian country, and a lot of traditional practices are existent, which are even applicable as on date, which can be used. And also traditional metallurgy, we have all heard of the Ashok pillar, which is has not rusted till date, standing for thousands of years. And yet, and that kind of advance in metallurgy perhaps we do not have today, and probably even the composition has not been replicated in the laboratories. Okay, a lot of work is going on in that area. We have recently got the cabinet approval for widening access to TKDL users in August, and we are working on the modalities, and at some point of time this would be available through subscription. Actually, when we started this work on traditional knowledge, all the efforts that have been done was through the approval of the cabinet. Okay, so as we proceed also, all necessary governmental approvals are required to even expand the access or the user base to TKDL. The third-party observation is one small aspect of TKDL that I also wanted to discuss here. Why it is important is that although we share this information with different patent offices, this being a very niche, specific area of knowledge which is understandable, primarily by Indians and the practitioners, we felt that there is a need to complement the effort that is being made by the different patent offices. So what happens is every patent office has some kind of legal provision wherein if a patent application is filed, you can send evidences contesting novelty and inventive step of that particular patent. Okay, we are using these provisions and actually filing third-party observations or pre-grant oppositions, as it is called in India, and filing evidences from TKDL to show that the patent applications which are being filed are not really novel or inventive. Okay, and used based on these efforts that have been made by us, we have been successful over a period of time in actually successful in 353 applications, wherein these have been refused, amended, withdrawn based on TKDL evidences. Just to give you a couple of examples, I have put these examples, but just to tell you how this work is done. So we contest the claims. We have a team which works, which will search through all the patent applications that are there in different patent offices. Then they will pick out the claims that we want to contest. For instance, here it is the bakuchiol and for musculoskeletal disorders relating to inflammatory disorders basically, and they have claimed certain plants. We contested those claims and presented TKDL evidences. Now, what the examiner report said that although the chemical constituents are not mentioned in those ancient texts, but they are part of the plants which are specified in the patent application, and as such it cannot be treated as inventive. So under section 3P, that is, it was treated as traditional knowledge, and the grant of the application was refused. Okay. Similarly, the other example I have put here relates to USPTO. So here also there is this Tephrosia purpurea. It's a very common weed-like plant, and it is known for diarrhea, treatment of diarrhea in India. So we presented the necessary evidences, and based on that, a certain set of claims relating to the treatment of diarrhea by Tephrosia purpurea was actually rejected by the examiner. Okay, and later on, at some point of time, this patent application also was abandoned. When I talk about traditional knowledge database, that is TKDL specifically to India, it's a very different database in the sense that there is a lot of value addition, and it's a very unique database. You know, it has been cited even at the level of international fora as a benchmark. But while we speak of that, we also have other databases in different countries like the Chinese medicine. These are, but they have information even related to omics data, like, you know, characterization and other data, which is related to the current modern research work that is being done. You can go and have a look. I have put the website URL also, so you can have a look. So we have similar databases for Korean traditional knowledge as well as Chinese traditional medicine. One another thing that I wanted to point out is, like, we have these digital libraries in Philippines. A lot of these countries came to India when we were doing work on TKDL and emulated the effort that we're doing here for their own, you know, information that is available in their country. So similarly, Philippines, Thailand, all these people have also created similarly similar databases in their countries. Okay. One another effort that I must speak about here is related to documentation. Unlike traditional knowledge digital library, which is from texts, that is from codified knowledge, that is from knowledge that has already been published, we have another effort which is ongoing under the National Biodiversity, the Biological Diversity Act of India, wherein information, this is more or less oral knowledge, which is taken from the people, that primary sources that I spoke about, and converted into a format that is being published. It is in a specific format. If you go to the National Biodiversity Authority website, you will get more information on this People's Biodiversity Register effort that is going on. This is actually mandated under law. So you have the Biodiversity Management Committee at the village panchayat level, which prepares and maintains such People's Biodiversity Register. It contains information on biodiversity, information, the traditional ecological knowledge. So one important thing here is associated traditional knowledge. Basically, it is biodiversity, but it has information on associated traditional knowledge. So this is a lot of information. It relates to oral traditional knowledge. So this is also one form of documentation. Okay. So when we talk about anything like even protection, we need to understand the pros and cons of this. Okay. While I told you that defensive protection will help in preventing misappropriation and protecting the knowledge of the knowledge holders. So the advantages of such documentation is preventing erroneous grant of patents. So you have this as a prior art database. The patent examiner is able to access it. So it will be treated as known knowledge and IPR will not be granted. Okay. Then it preserves valuable heritage because, as I said, as the knowledge holder passes away, so does the information along with him. And as we are losing languages and the formats under which such heritage is protected, this effort becomes more urgent, more emergent. Then identifying knowledge holders. So documentation, while we do documentation, we can also maintain such registers. Now the concerns is, I said that whenever we document such knowledge, we have to take informed consent of the person. You would often see papers published in articles published in journals. Okay. We don't know whether they have taken prior informed consent, whether they have actually acknowledged the holders. This is one major concern. Another is information control. Once this information goes into other hands without the knowledge of custodians or the owners knowing it, then what happens to this knowledge? How does information get controlled? Okay, making such knowledge readily accessible, especially in the age of internet, does this trigger more misappropriation? That's one concern. Then the extent of access. A lot of this information, I said, remains undisclosed. That is oral traditional knowledge. How to maintain confidentiality of such knowledge? Okay. Then safeguarding the information. Technology advances are so far gone. See, like for instance, if you talk about genetic resources, you need not have physical access to the genetic resource. Simply with the digital sequencing data, you can use it for research and publish it, gain commercial advantage, everything. without ever making use of the original plant or the original knowledge holder being made aware of such things. I come to positive protection, that is the second part of the title that I presented in the beginning. There is no exclusive law in the country for protection of traditional knowledge. Yesterday, you heard of a lot of the intellectual property rights. Now, intellectual property rights are available for tangible, intangible, and they kind of, you have a specific owner who will apply for the IPR and will be granted certain rights for certain durations. And under law, they can even go to the court for if in case such rights are infringed. So what about traditional knowledge per se? No, there is no exclusive law in the country for traditional knowledge which protects traditional knowledge. Okay. So when you talk about challenges of traditional knowledge, now the thing is, if you consider that the existing IPR can be used for protecting traditional knowledge, there is a catch in that. The traditional knowledge is not novel, not okay. What is the primary criteria for grant of any IPR? It has to be novel. Traditional knowledge is not novel. They are dynamic living tradition and they are often community owned. So which of the rights that we know in IPR are actually community owned? One is geographical indications. And maybe to some extent you have other protection like plant variety where you can have some commonly owned. But otherwise, any IPR is owned by a particular person. Okay. So when you have traditional knowledge, it is not novel and it keeps changing also over a period of time. It's not as if this is a static type of knowledge. So you have knowledge which is being practiced over thousands of years. Everybody has added their own, insights into it, and probably it has undergone transformation. Okay. So these are the challenges. So what is the need is that there is a sui generis legal provision for protecting traditional knowledge. Since the existing IPR, under the existing IPR laws, it is very difficult to protect traditional knowledge. Although in some, indirect manner, we can have some protection for traditional knowledge, it cannot be directly protected under existing laws. I have just put some of this. All of this you must have heard of yesterday, the Geographical Indications Act. So if you consider the Geographical Indications Act, it is given for a particular, the goods, which is, or, you have this traditional crafts, arts, which are from a particular territory. But what is lacking here is the underlying traditional knowledge. That is not protectable under this act. It is only the product which is protected. For instance, industrial designs. Suppose you talk about weaving. A lot of these have specific patterns. Okay, so the design per se can be protected. But what about again the underlying intellectual property, which may be the way the yarn is used or the dyeing process? All those things don't get protected. In copyright, maybe the songs, the forms, the dance, those things can be protected under copyright, but that is only a limited form of protection. Suppose it has a spiritual aspect to it, that cannot be protected under copyright law. Similarly, plant variety protection, certain plant varieties or the particular land races can be protected. But if you talk about the agricultural practices, that cannot be protected. The Biological Diversity Act does have some provisions wherein traditional knowledge holders are indirectly protected. That is, it stipulates that access benefit sharing has to be done. That is one thing. The other thing is when you transfer research results, that cannot be done without approval of the National Biodiversity Authority. Similarly, if you're using the bioresource or associated knowledge, gaining intellectual property rights or applying for intellectual property rights cannot be done without the approval of NBA. Okay. Also, we have the People's Biodiversity Register, which is a record. Similarly, you also have the Forest Rights Act or the Forest Dwellers Act, which has certain indirect applications wherein the traditional knowledge holders or the like the tribal people can make use of the forest produce or can use that for cultivation and so on and so forth. But again, this is an indirect form of protection. Okay. While we speak of the national protections, you must understand that we spoke about, you must have learnt about the IPR yesterday. They are all territorial protection. So having protection of IPR or any legal provision, they are usually restricted to the country. Okay, so even if we have some sort of protection for traditional knowledge within the country, it is applicable only within the country. Whereas we know that this kind of misappropriation is cross-border. Okay, so it is not that the misappropriation is happening only in India, it is happening across the countries. Patents can be granted in US, it can be granted in Europe, it can be granted anywhere. So this the recognition of this cross-border misappropriation led to discussions in the World Intellectual Property Organizations to have a wider international binding regime to protect traditional knowledge, traditional cultural expressions, and genetic resources. Okay, why? Because national laws have limited impact, and the commercial use can go beyond the traditional context, and we know it is vulnerable to misappropriation, misuse. And the use of these legal provisions can be to establish some minimum standards of protection, whereas the countries can go beyond these minimum standards of protection, have the protection in the context of what is, how this traditional knowledge is used or made available in the country itself. So negotiations have been going on since 2001 at the international level. One recent development has been that there has been a genetic resource instrument which was signed in May 2024. The objective of this was entirely different when they began, but at the time of signing, what they have achieved consensus in is that this instrument allows to enhance the efficacy, transparency, quality of the patent system, and prevention of patent grants on non-patentable subject matter related to genetic resources and associated TK. Okay, this is the objective. One important aspect that I wanted to point out here is under the Article 6, they speak about establishing information systems such as databases of genetic resources and traditional knowledge in consultation. So again, the emphasis is on the defensive protection. Okay, it was understood to have some form of positive protection, but if you see, some compromises have been made, but the particular instrument allows for review over a period of time and probably an enhancement in the protection, or with more understanding of what traditional knowledge constitutes, this could become a stronger type of protection. Okay, whereas the legal provisions or the legal regime on traditional knowledge and TCEs, that is traditional cultural expression, is still under discussion and has not reached any form of consensus. The only thing I want to emphasize here, by use of a sui generis law, what are the things that should be, that particular legal regime should contain, is that it should empower communities. As I said, it is part of their livelihood. The traditional knowledge is part of the livelihood. So they should have control over the information that they hold. Okay, should empower communities. It should promote traditional knowledge, and the access or the commercial exploitation, this should not be done without the consent of the knowledge holder. And of course, so when we talk about traditional knowledge, a lot of it, as I said, is applicable today, and it can be used to take off more research and development. Only thing we have to keep in mind that this does not affect the livelihood of knowledge holders, and they should be compensated in some manner for sharing that knowledge with us. Okay, so thank you. I'll stop here. A lot of this I will discuss tomorrow in more in detail, but for today, I'm making I will stop here, and I think I'll give the floor over to Piyush ji. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Namaste, Vijayalakshmi ji. Thank you very much for yes, another very enlightening session on the subject of traditional knowledge, and especially focusing on traditional TKDL and the work that it is doing. So here, I request the participants who would like to ask the questions to raise their hands digitally, and so that we can unmute you and you can ask your question. Beside that, I request you to also put your questions on the chat, and we can take a few questions from there. Or just before that, Piyush, before we do the questions or the assignments, assessment. Yes. I think just before we go into the assessment, before we go into the question and answers, we just take the assessment, and then it will be followed by the question and answers. All right. So I request Piyush to please take over with the question and answer. I mean, with the assessment.
So we request all of you, You are given 10 minutes to complete your assignment. I am just copying and pasting in the chat box. 1 second. Only 10 minutes. Sorry, assignment link. It is. So we'll. It's 23. We'll end 4:20. 33. Huh? 34. Okay. Please. I am also uploading the same link in the Google Drive folder, so you can download from there also. Namaste. Time is over. Could you please submit? Whoever have not submit yet, please submit. Then we can go to the next session, question and answer session. Yes, Pranam, madam. Thank you very much, madam, for delivering us such a insightful, valuable, informative session, as you did always. Can we move to the question and answer session? So I request all the participants, please, if you have any doubt, please raise your digital hand. We will make you unmute, so you can ask your question. Yes, here. Kumarji, namaste, Kumari Yoti ji.
Yes.
Could you please ask your question? Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
My question is for all panelists. Actually, I tried to ask the question in the first day itself. My question is that if when we are considering Indian knowledge system, till which era we are actually considering? Is it like we are considering it before any invasion or any such era it is being considered? I wish to know that.
Dr. Anuradha, like to answer that?
Yes, Arya is busy. So see, when we look into IKS,
Mm-hmm.
we don't go into the timeline. Three important pillars which
Achha.
we are looking into. One is drishti, another is parampara. So when we talk
Yes.
about drishti, that the perspective is important. There is no time, there is no religion, there is no anything. It's
Okay.
holistic. And parampara.
Okay.
Parampara, we don't know how parampara is, what parampara is. So it can be extended whatever, wherever. So we are just focusing three things. One is drishti, perspective, and parampara, the what tradition from one generation to another generation. And the last one is laukika prayojanam. So is it valuable? How we can solve the modern problems with this existing knowledge? So it's a it gives the solution of the modern problems which are existing. That's the Laukika Prayojanam. We are just not talking. We are not showcasing our heritage. We just want to make the from the knowledge from Shastra, library to laboratory in the experimental.
Okay. Okay, sir. Then, if we say, I can understand that Urdu is a language, and the text which actually came out from Urdu language, it is taken into consider into India knowledge system. Shall I take consider of Arabic, English?
Yes, that's the language. Yes,
Achha.
because we need the knowledge, and there are all languages are welcome in our. So it's a holistic approach. We have to include everything.
Okay. Okay, sir.
But when we speak, we just need one language. So that's the starting point. But the ending is the humorous.
Okay, sir.
Namaste, Ayushi ji. Could you please
Yes,
ask your question?
yes. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, my question to you is that when we talk about Indian knowledge systems, there is so much that is yet to be documented and digitalized. So, are there any training programs that TKDL provides to universities or faculty in the universities so that even we can carry on a project in our immediate vicinity to document first and then digitalize these systems, and like there are so many tangible and intangible. So I wanted to know about that and any collaboration possibility with TKDL.
Some things about ethical documentation of traditional knowledge. Okay, I'll speak some of it tomorrow, so you will get a lot of insight into how this documentation is to be done. It will be like a training only. So we have worked on one guidance document relating to how such knowledge should be recorded in an ethical manner. So I picked some points from there, and I'll be giving an overview of how this work can be done. So if you have more queries regarding how this documentation is to be done, we can take it up tomorrow. That's one thing. The other thing is we have been working on such training sessions with IKS, okay? And we've also attended some of these master training programs where we have provided information to the participants. Besides, if you want any specific trainings in your university organization, you can always approach us. And then about collaborations, right now TKDL, we work, our thing is restricted to the CSIR. So as such, we are an intramural organization. So the projects which are funded by CSIR are carried out in CSIR. But if you have any specific guidance or something that you would require, you can always get in touch. Thank you.
Namaste, Gupta ji. Mauna Gupta ji, could you please ask your question? Or next. Yoshi ji. Next.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Sir, I wanted to ask you, I have designed my own courses as per IKS guideline. So I'm not working for any institute. So how can I publish it through IKS?
You have made already the course, na?
Yes, sir.
In which form it is available?
It's available in astronomy, astrology, and plant conservation.
Yes.
Right. So just would like to tell you, Vijayji.
Yes, ma'am.
So as of now, the themes that IKS division is creating courses on are given on our website. And we are trying to stick to those courses as courses that we are encouraging through the UGC format, etc. So usually the courses that the IKS division accepts are either courses that they have distributed to different centers. We have got about 13 centers that are designated for creating IKS course materials, so teacher training program, etc. So you can either go, so those centers are first and foremost creating courses that IKS division is then promoting. Secondly, we also have identified certain groups of people who are known experts in those fields who are working and developing course material. But for your courses to be accepted, you would have to just check whether they form part of the themes that we have accepted as of now for the first round of courses that need immediate attention to be popularized across the country. We are looking initially at the mainstream subjects that are there, and we're trying to see how we can bring in courses that are related to those subjects initially. And then later on, when the subject itself is well established, then we will explore other courses that are not included in the list that we've mentioned.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Please check our website to see whether the courses that you have created form part of that list or not.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste, Dr. Yoti ji.
Hello.
Yes.
Namaste,
please.
sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I just want to know that can I file an IPR for a particular thought I have in the form of like questionnaire? Yeah, what will be the process? If yes, then what will be the process for that?
You'll have to be a little more specific what you want. Would Anil like to take this question? Anil? You'll have to be a little more specific. What do you mean by
that?
Yeah.
I'm asking that if I have some idea or some thought, and because I am the student of sociology and human values, so if I have some idea which is not in existence till now or not a popular one, है so can I file IPR for that particular thought? For that, what will be the procedure?
Yes, to answer this, I will just explain the concept of copyright because it's a subject matter which falls under copyright, and copyright is given on the expression. So in case you have some thoughts in your mind that will not be protected until or unless you will express those thoughts or questions on a piece of paper. So once you pen down or express that in a paper, that expression will have the copyright. Okay. Then again, we'll have to see whether the kind of expression you have made is original or not. In case it is similar to the existing things, then it doesn't qualify to be an original work. And in case it is original, then you will have the proper right under copyrights.
So just I have to write in that particular article form or paragraph form. Yeah, there is any type of format for that?
No format. It's your
Okay,
expression. You may write it in, I mean, as you wish. But it should be original in nature. That's the only qualification.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it should be original. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, can you take some other questions or we can?
আমি জিজ্ঞেস করি?
Yes.
So there's a question here by Arushi Unyalji, who's saying, ma'am, my question is whether TKDL provides any training programs to academic institutions and their faculty to conduct digitalization of IKS around them. Are there any funding collaboration opportunities with TKDL?
Yeah, ma'am, I already answered this question.
I've answered that question. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
There is another one by Kanchan Kumarji. Have you answered that one? On the portal for arts and humanities discipline?
Yeah.
All right. So this is a question where Kanchan Kumarji is saying, is there any portal for arts and humanities discipline where traditional knowledge database is available for economics, politics, education, etc.? Like you've given examples of the medical discipline.
Yeah. So that was the thing that we are working on, and I have come across a lot of these databases, but frankly, I have not come across any database on the kind of domains that you are talking about. But I looked through this. There are some publications, I believe, but let me have a look and let you know in more detail. Maybe Piyushji, you can just pass on the information to me. So if I find anything, I will give it to Piyushji so that he can give it to you. Is that okay? I personally not come across any database.
Let me go to the next question. Prachi ji.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so a very good evening to ma'ams and sirs. So actually, I am associate professor in the Department of Nutrition and Dietetics. And since when I heard about IKS and since when I started participating in workshops like this, I'm very much interested into it. At an infancy stage, I tried to write a project where I could link nutrition and I could, like it was the Ministry of Ayush last year. So I tried it, but I understand that it should not be at that level, and I could not get the acceptance for that project. That was okay, but I want to now learn more. I'm guiding a masters and I'm also guiding PhDs, and I want to work in this field for my nutrition and dietetics. So how should I go about it? What should be my steps so that I can work in the direction of traditional knowledge?
Arya, would you like to say in this regard? Or
Yeah, I think this Vijay Lakshmi ji, if you would like to.
I believe
please.
asking about how they can. I think it's related to IKS. I think she's asking. If I'm not
Yes.
mistaken.
So just we can give some thoughts in this regard. So first of all, every proposal has a specific structure. There is a specific objective. So we started some proposal writing workshops 1 year before. So like if you go through any proposal writing workshop, so that will give you some inputs how the project can be etc. can be going on. So according to that, you can modify your proposal again, and because your area is very valuable under the umbrella of IKS. So I think you have to research again and go ahead. You will get acceptance.
So there's one question here by Dr. Vibha Rathorji who's saying, how can communities ensure the preservation and protection of traditional knowledge, especially in the face of modern challenges like commercialization and the loss of cultural practices?
Yeah, that's a
Very
challenge
valid.
actually. Yeah. So it's a very valid question, and that is a basic challenge. Especially we have noticed in the past, a lot of the communities are approached by researchers or people who say that we just want to hear about your things and document. To some extent, such communities are vulnerable. They probably, when they share the information with the researcher or the documenter or any other person, they basically are thinking that the person just wants to know about that information. But what finally happens is, without acknowledgement, people go on to commercialize it, do research, make products, and then and nothing comes back to the community. So what is important primarily is to make the communities aware of their rights, and such awareness and capacity building programs for the communities are very important. Like what I'm telling you is that how to ethically document traditional knowledge is one aspect that the researchers have to know. Similarly, we should have awareness programs and capacity building programs for the traditional knowledge community holders to tell them what are their rights and how they can protect their own knowledge. So once that is done, they get empowered. So they will be in a position to understand to whom and in what manner to share the information that they have. Okay. So there are ways to do it, like even National Innovation Foundation helps. So probably when there is information which is, like confidential information or information which is not public, they could even gain IPR rights on those, that kind of knowledge. But they should be first made aware of what is possible with that knowledge that they hold. So it's important to empower them. Yeah.
Thank you very much. There's another question by Dr. R. Bharandharan ji, who's saying that whenever there's a patent, what is the validity for it? Like, how does it start and what is the validity period for it? Is there like a standard validity?
Sorry?
Is there like a standard validity period around it, or how does it work?
Patents are granted for a period of 20 years from the date of application. Okay. So that is the duration of a patent grant in all countries, basically. That's the standard duration.
Is it from the date of application or for the date of acceptance? Like supposing I apply for a patent.
Date of application, especially in case of patents, is there a priority date? That is, you apply in different countries. So if you have applied in the US first and you applied in India later, then it is not the application date in India that counts. It is the application date in US that counts. That is the priority date, the first date of application. So it is from the date of application, 20 years, that your patent grant is valid.
There's another question here, but it's not directly, I think it's not something that we can address very clearly. But Govind Chaudhary is saying that there are no gurukuls present in urban areas. Why societies prefer government schools to private schools? But that's not exactly our purview, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone.
Please, please.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes.
Ma'am, I have a question that what is the practical utility of IKS for the already working faculty members? And have there been courses which have already been introduced in the colleges in the form of PG or graduation degrees?
All right, so I'll take that up now, Jalakshmi. It's nice to see that there's a lot of IKS also coming up now. It's a new trend now. But yeah, so if I may answer this one. So the thing is that your first question was, what is the utility of IKS? Now, the fact is that there's a direct requirement because UGC has mandated that 5% of all courses, wherever possible, there has to be IKS content. This is a UGC guideline requirement, all right? So from that perspective, if you are including, if the subject that you teach can incorporate some IKS component, then you will be contributing towards your institution's fulfillment of that requirement. So there is a very practical benefit of your including, the very practical, let's say, ranking benefit, because IKS is also including an IKS component as part of the implementation of NEP, which requires rootedness in India as one of its aspects. The NAC is also taking that into consideration when it is giving its accreditation to institutions. So therefore, your
yes, ma'am.
It will be helpful.
Yes.
All right. That's
Ma'am,
one.
My request is that I'm from a humanities background, but I do have an interest in Chanakya's theories and other urban planning as well. So how can I contribute, in my teaching and towards my students if I complete a course, because I am from a humanities background. So where there'll be any courses from IKS division which includes humanities as well as other aspects of IKS?
So in humanities also, it's a very broad subject. No? Within humanities, what is a specific area? So if you're, for example, if you're a sociology person within social science, if you're looking at social sciences within humanities, there's lots that you can get from Chanakya's Arthashastra, that can contribute towards the way in which society moves. There's a lot. So what you have to see is that, and this is, I think, an important point, that as Indian scholars, we need to recognize the lacunae, the existing lacunae to some extent in our education system today, is that as an education system, we have in all the different disciplines, we have really very little taken into consideration the vast contribution that our civilization has made in terms of thoughts around that knowledge tradition, which is not part of mainstream. And that was because of a certain strategy that Macaulay had initiated and all. But we have to understand that that was a conscious strategy and plan to deracinate us, to remove us from our own roots. So the point, like I said, from a practical perspective, when we're talking of social sciences, our society is an indic society. The psyche underlying the society is an indic psyche. But the social theories that we are taught are often theories from Western scholars. So there is invariably a mismatch at some level. I'm not saying that there is no universality in that knowledge, but invariably there are certain areas of application where there would be a mismatch of the theory and the ground reality. And there is a force critical theory to, to the ground circumstances, because that is the trend. of westernization. That's the lens that we're using to study our own people. So from a very, very practical angle, it makes sense to start looking at ourselves from our lens perspective in various knowledge domains. So this, you're talking of social sciences. So in psychology also, it is the same thing. In linguistic theories, there are incredible contributions that we've made. In fact, the entire linguistic theories have been developed based on Sanskrit association of those scholars, be it Socio, Chomsky. They've all been associated with Sanskrit linguistics at some point and then evolved their theories. But we are not reminded of the source, which is our own. So this is just, I mean, it's a long discussion in itself, but as I said, utilitarian point of view from an institutional perspective, IKS component, inclusion of IKS component is valuable for the institution. From a knowledge perspective, if we are applying our study, doing research on our society, it's very, very helpful to look at theories that have evolved from our thought background, from the drishti, the Bharatiya drishti, the way that we looked at life, to try and study our people from our lenses. And the next step would be to study other societies from our lens perspective if you want to do innovative research in the future.
Yes, ma'am.
So these kind of things are there.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Yes, ma'am. So
4 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock. We can just complete with one last question. Arya, if you would like
I'm
to.
just seeing if there is anything.
Yes.
There's one question, Vijay Lakshmiji, that's being asked again in the context of Ayurveda. So I'll just punch 2-3 questions here. So one question was that with Ayurveda, such an ancient knowledge tradition, being so relevant to human well-being, why is it that there is a tendency to go towards Ayurveda? That is why towards allopathy. That was one question. That why is there a tendency to fall back on allopathy more? And also, like, if I can add a little more dimension directly addressing your thing, that there are a lot of these traditional healers. In our country, we have over about a few lakhs of traditional healers. But there is no standardization from a modern perspective of the knowledge that we have. So how can TKDL and other like IKS, TKDL group bodies help to bring in standardizations of those so that they gain a more scientific temper from a modern perspective? And then how do we build policies that will allow our people to benefit from these knowledge traditions rather than fall back on allopathic, which is again a different worldview and also tends to drug us more than often heal us. In a certain extent, I'm not again dismissing the benefits of allopathy, but there are more side effects sometimes related to that system of medicine. So if you'd like to.
Some of the part of the question was answered by the rest of the question, to say that why do we rely so much on allopathy? That is that validation which we of people of scientific temper believe that everything needs to be validated. So there is not enough experimentation or on the drugs, or we don't have those kind of trials which are there for allopathic drugs. So people tend to believe that. And then another thing about the systems of medicine that we are talking about, even folk healing or even the Ayurveda, and we are that generation who wants our condition to be treated immediately. And Ayurveda, Unani, they don't work that way. They are holistic systems of medicine which treat the underlying condition, not your symptoms. We want our symptoms to go, but our symptoms don't go. They treat the underlying condition, and at some point of time, you will no longer be afflicted by that particular condition because your underlying the condition itself is eradicated. But we do not have patience for that. So we tend to believe in things, those quick remedies which help us. But to talk of the standardization, see, even IKS or even TKDL for that matter, it has sensitized people to the existence or even use of such traditional knowledge or traditional systems of medicine. It has generated a lot of interest, and there is a lot of validation work going on even in the Ministry of Ayush. Okay. But even so to speak, it is not easy to do even these validation studies. You have to do those trials, and you have the Drugs and Cosmetic Act for Ayurveda, Unani, and Siddha medicines also. So you have to follow the procedures, and the clinical trials are also being done. Okay, So you do get the standardized drugs, which are, they call proprietary drugs and other things in the Drugs and Cosmetic Act. So that work is being done. But, the another, I wouldn't say a problem, I would say the complexity of such systems of medicine is that they contain a large number of ingredients. Unlike an allopathic drug, which would be possibly single chemical ingredient or maybe a specific combination. Not so with the systems of medicine. They have a large number of combinations, and when you go into the molecular pathways or how each molecule or each combination affects the particular system, to study this and to get the clinical trials right or get all these things, it takes some time. Okay, but we are getting into it, and over a period of time, these standardization methods will come into a proper like framework or proper SOPs will be done for that. And I think we will get this thing into a proper system so that we can work more on the standardization of these drugs. It's already being done, but it will happen in a more systematized manner. Yeah.
Can I, if you don't mind, this is one interesting one related to the medicinal plant. Neha Singh ji was asking that if I'm using any medicinal plant for making a product, how can I know that the novelty of the product is patentable or not?
Okay. So, see, medicinal plant, to some extent, some of the databases I even mentioned in this, you could go and have a look. Okay, a lot of the medicinal plants are associated with certain treatments, and it's probably even mentioned in those databases. TKDL, I mean, as of now, is not available for public use, so you wouldn't be able to see it from the TKDL. But you may be able to get a lot of such information on even the internet. I don't know what plant you're talking about, but you could get information and also from text. So if you have any practitioners of medicine or people who are educated in Ayurveda, any friends, they would be able to guide you. That's one thing. And the other thing is you would be able to get some information from such databases as these, as I have quoted. Okay.
Thank you very much. I would just like to take up one question. I mean, it's because it's an IKS related question, and it's a question that brings up certain misconceptions around IKS. Nazreji is saying that what about IKS of Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh? No connection with Sanskrit or Indic. So I would just like to mention that as an IKS division, when we are trying to promote Indic knowledge systems, Sanskrit has a very big knowledge base that has been accumulated over various centuries. But by no means is IKS restricted to either Sanskrit or Sanskritic knowledge traditions alone. There are huge resources of knowledge that are available in various Indian knowledge, Bharatiya Bhashas or Indian knowledges, or Indian languages. And that is the reason why it is very important for native speaking people of different regional languages to take the trouble to start exploring the texts of your lands, because people from other places cannot take up that task. So we want native speakers of the regional languages of the different parts of the country, especially the Northeast is an extremely rich storehouse. And Vijayalakshmi ji will confirm this also. It's an extremely rich storehouse of natural traditional practices of all sorts, from community practices to medicine to warfare to, I think you just have such a rich variety of knowledge traditions there, but which are getting lost at a very fast pace because of absence of documentation. So we really encourage people who are living in these belts, which are non-Sanskrit, non-Hindi belts, which still get more language traction. So we want you to consider taking up research. And if you want to take up research, so the IKS division has research grants. We have institutional research projects that you can apply for grants, encourage interns to take up studies so that the next generation is also enthused. We have something called the Yaksha Prashna, which is like an IKS Wikipedia that we are creating on our website. So on this website, you can start writing articles based on regional languages. It is not at all limited to only English or Hindi or Sanskrit or any of the main languages, but we really invite you to start contributing. There was just a small problem around the word when you're saying it is non-Indic. That is a whole bigger discussion, because if you take it a little further, you will see that there is a lot of shared worldviews And that's the beauty of this pluralistic nation, that they are not identical, but there are underlying worldviews which have resonances, overlaps. None of them will be identical, but there is some component of a similarity across apparently very dissimilar subcultures of this land. No? So, what would be a research project in itself is to see whether what is regarded as IKS in these northeastern regions, whether they really have an Indic perspective, or is it coming from another land or another worldview. That in itself is a research question that you might want to take up. But I thought this is a very important question to address, because people have this accusation against IKS that it tends to be only Sanskrit based, which it is not. But at the same time, it is also important to acknowledge that, and this is what TKDL also acknowledges in the work that it is doing, that the volume of literature that is available in manuscripts, often Sanskrit, is enormous. And therefore, it tends to sound like it's Sanskrit, but it is by no means limited to Sanskrit as a language for IKS. All regional languages are equally valid and valuable for accessing the regional knowledge traditions. So please take up that work for Northeast. There's a lot of requirement. Yes. So thank you very much, Vijay Lakshmi ji, again.
Thank you to all the participants to join us, although we have a busy schedule. So see you tomorrow. So we'll close with a Shanti Mantra. Please, Arya.
Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Just also last thing before we close here is people are asking about the assignments or the assessments of the previous days. That is not possible, because it is only during that limited time that everybody who has registered will have access to that link in the Google Drive. So please don't keep asking us either on mail or on the chat to give you open up the links of assessments that are already completed. There will be a final assessment on the 27th. So if you've missed any by chance here, make sure 100% that you've prepared enough, and you will write that one and get 100% on that. And there's a good chance of you getting the the certificate, which will be only given to those who score over 75%. So please note these things and excuse us for not being able to reshare those links. Thank you.
Astu Pranamaha.